Hello. Hello, Ratch Jade. Hello, Crocodile. Lois, Miss Calvinez. I'm so happy you all are here. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. It's an Indian remix of the Harry Peter theme.
Harry Peter.
The Harry Pooter.
Harry Peter.
Hello, everybody. Hello, welcome. Yeah, I got earbolts. Oh, Jacob, I love you, son, too. This is Conk's Corner with John Reedsley, aka me, Mark over there, Dexter, and apparently people who listen are now conquistadors. What I'm doing is I'm reading Harry Potter for a full hour every day to distract ourselves, to connect with people, to have fun, to laugh. I appreciate you tuning in. I'm saying this every single time. You have value, you have meaning, and you are loved. Don't forget that if you're in self-isolation or reach out to somebody who needs to know that. So I've never read these books. These are all new to me. I've seen 2 or 3 of the movies, don't remember much from them. So I read through the comments. Please, no spoilers, no hints about anything that's coming up. I don't want to know. I want all this to be a surprise to me, especially when I develop the voices. I leave a little Q&A or interaction session at the end where I can actually talk to you because I can't do it at the same time when I'm reading. We're going to clap for the nurses. I put all the videos on my YouTube link that's in my bio, so you can catch up to anything that you missed out. You have meaning, your love, and I got your cock. That's really good. I have a few new things. First of all, tomorrow I am having a guest reader. It's a buddy of mine I met in LA, and this is Robbie K. You might have known him from Pirates of the Caribbean, from Heroes Reborn, or from Once Upon a Time. So he's going to be reading the narration while I do the voices. So it's going to be a fun experiment. We're going to do whatever comes to mind. We'll see how it goes, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So tune in tomorrow for that. Another thing is I would like to give a shout out to whatever nurses are on the stream and whoever joins in. So I know that Alana Wright, she's probably in the chat. She's the nurse. She's been working hard. And also Lawrence Belmer. I think her name is L Belmer 01 or something like that. Let me know in the chat if you're a nurse. I'd love to give you a shout out every single time for the work you're doing. We really appreciate that. One final thing before we get started. I'm going to set up a Patreon. I'm going to do this regardless if anybody contributes or not. All my work got lost, so this is what I've been doing. But again, I'm going to be giving a portion of my whatever is donated there also to a cause. Now, please write into the into the captions, what cause you think would be beneficial to donate to. Whatever suggestions you have. Okay, so let's get started on the reading. We've been at the very beginning, still at the Dursleys' house. Harry Potter is still being treated very poorly by the family, and now his aunt, I think it's his aunt, has come over. What's her name again? Margie? Aunt Marge. And we've discovered some fun, okay, thank you, Sarah, yes. Some fun voices for these characters. So let's get started. If you're following along to this book, we're on page number 26 at the very top. Hey, Alex. All right. Dudley was eating his 4th slice of pie. Aunt Petunia was sipping coffee with her little finger sticking out. Harry really wanted to disappear into his bedroom, but he met Uncle Vernon's angry little eyes and knew he would have to sit it out. Okay, so we got Aunt Marge. I've read some of your comments, so I think I'm going to try and go in a different direction. Aha! Said Aunt Marge, smacking her lips and putting the empty brandy glass back down.
Excellent nosh, Petunia. It's normally just a fry-up for me of an evening, with 12 dogs to look after.
She burped richly, very poor burp, and patted her great tweed stomach.
Pardon me, but I do like to see a healthy-sized boy,
she went on. Something like that. Winking at Dudley.
You'll be a proper-sized man, Dudders, like your father. Yes, I'll have a spot more brandy, Vernon. Now, this one here.
She jerked her head at Harry, who felt his stomach clench. The handbook, he thought quickly.
This one's got a mean, runty look about him. You get that with dogs.
Does that work?
I had Colonel Faubster drown last year. Ratty little thing it was. Weak, underbred.
Harry was trying to remember page 12 of his book, A Charm to Cure Reluctant Reversers.
It all comes down to blood. As I was saying the other day, bad blood will out. Now, I'm saying nothing against your family, Petunia.
She patted Aunt Petunia's bony hand with her shovel-like one.
But your sister was a bad egg. They churn up in the best families. Then she ran off with a wastrel, and here's the result right in front of us.
Okay, good. That's working out. Harry was staring at his plate, a funny ringing in his ears. Grasp your broom firmly by the tail, he thought, but he couldn't remember what came next. Aunt Marge's voice seemed to be boring into him like one of Uncle Vernon's drills.
This Potter,
said Aunt Marge loudly, seizing the brandy bottle and splashing more into her glass and over the tablecloth.
You never told me what he did.
Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia were looking extremely tense. Dudley had even looked up from his pie to gape at his parents.
He didn't work,
said Uncle Vernon with half a glance at Harry.
Unemployed. As I expected,
said Aunt Marge, taking a huge swig of brandy and wiping her chin on her sleeve.
A no-account, good-for-nothing, lazy scrounger who...
He was not, said Harry suddenly. The table went very quiet. Harry was shaking all over. He had never felt so angry in his life.
More brandy!
Yelled Uncle Vernon, who had gone very white. He emptied the bottle into Aunt Marge's glass.
You, boy,
he snarled at Harry.
Go to bed. Go on. No, Vernon.
She's got this like a rolling R. I don't know where that came from. Hiccuped Aunt Marge, holding up a hand, her tiny bloodshot eyes fixed on Harry's.
Go on, boy. Go on. Proud of your parents, are you? They go and get themselves killed in a car crash. Drunk, I expect.
They didn't die in a car crash, said Harry, who found himself on his feet. Whoa!
They died in a car crash, you nasty little liar, and left you to be a burden on their decent, hard-working relatives, screamed Aunt Marge, swelling with fury. You are an insolent, ungrateful little...
But Aunt Marge suddenly stopped speaking. For a moment, it looked as though words had failed her. She seemed to be swelling with inexpressible anger, but the swelling didn't stop. Her great red face started to expand. Her tiny eyes bulged and her mouth stretched too tightly for speech. Next second, several buttons burst from her tweed jacket and pinged off the walls. She was inflating like a monstrous balloon, her stomach bursting free of her tweed waistband, each of her fingers blowing up like salami. What is going on?
Marge!
Oh man, he took such a deep intake of breath there. Yelled Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia together. Oh, she did too. As Aunt Marge's whole body began to rise off her chair towards the ceiling. She was entirely round now, like a vast life buoy. Boy. One of those words. Buoy! With piggy eyes, and her hands and feet stuck out weirdly as she drifted up into the air, making apoplectic popping noises. Apoplectic popping noises. Ripper came skidding to the room, barking madly.
No!
Uncle Vernon seized one of Marge's feet and tried to pull her down again. Oh man, he's funny. but was almost lifted from the floor himself. Next second, Ripper had leapt forward and sunk his teeth into Uncle Vernon's leg. Hey, Lily and Charlotte, I know you were with Rebecca. Harry tore from the dining room before anyone could stop him, heading for the cupboard under the stairs. The cupboard door burst magically open as he reached it. In seconds, he had heaved his trunk to the front door. He sprinted downstairs and threw himself under the bed, wrenched up the loose floorboard, and grabbed the pillowcase full of his books and birthday presents. He wriggled out, seized Hedwig's empty cage, and dashed back towards his trunk, just as Uncle Vernon burst out of the dining room, his trouser leg in bloody tatters.
Come back here, he bellowed. Come back and put her right.
But a reckless rage had come over Harry. He picked his trunk open, pulled out his wand, and pointed it at Uncle Vernon. "She deserved it," Harry said, breathing very fast. "She deserved what she got. You keep away from me." He fumbled behind him for the catch on the door. "I'm going," Harry said. "I've had enough." And next moment he was out in the dark, quiet street, heaving his heavy trunk behind him, Hedwig's cage under his arm. Whoa! Housebreak! He ran away, yo! That's crazy. That was a crazy end to it. I didn't expect that at all. I thought something else would come floating in and take him away, or he'd go to the train station. But he broke out. Prison Break season 4. Man, that was good. But now Vernon won't be back. Won't be able to do that character probably till the end of the book or next book. Oh, I love that character so much. Hey, Dexy. Come face the audience, buddy. You're on stage. You know? And you're upstaging me, too.
It's called blocking, Dexter.
Yeah. There he is. Just chilling out. Chapter 3, The Night Bus. Harry was several streets away before he collapsed onto a low wall in Magnolia Crescent, panting from the effort of dragging his trunk. He sat quite still, anger still surging through him, listening to the frantic thumping of his heart. But after 10 minutes alone in the dark street, a new emotion overtook him. Panic. Whichever way he looked at it, he had never been in a worse fix. He was stranded, quite alone, in the dark Muggle world, with absolutely nowhere to go. And the worst of it was, he had just done serious magic, which meant that he was almost certainly expelled from Hogwarts. He had broken the decree for the restriction of underage wizardry so badly, he was surprised Ministry of Magic representatives weren't swooping down on him where he sat. Harry shivered and looked up and down Magnolia Crescent. What was going to happen to him? Would he be arrested, or would he simply be outlawed from the wizarding world? He thought of Ron and Hermione, and his heart sank even lower. Harry was sure that, criminal or not, Ron and Hermione would want to help him now. But they were both abroad, and with Hedwig gone, he had no means of contacting them. He didn't have any Muggle money either. There was a little wizard gold in the money bag at the bottom of his trunk, but the rest of the fortune his parents had left him was stored in a vault at Gringotts Wizarding Bank in London. He'd never be able to drag his trunk all the way to London, unless he looked down at his wand, which he was still clutching in his hand. If he was already expelled, his heart was now thumping painfully fast. A bit more magic couldn't hurt. He had the invisibility cloak he had inherited from his father. What if he bewitched the trunk to make it feather light, tied it to his broomstick, covered himself in the cloak, and flew to London? Then he could get the rest of his money out of his vault and begin his life as an outcast. It was a horrible prospect. But he couldn't sit on this wall forever, or he'd find himself trying to explain to Muggle police why he was out in the dead of the night with a trunk full of spellbooks and a broomstick. Harry opened his trunk again and pushed the contents aside, looking for the invisibility cloak. But before he had found it, he straightened up suddenly, looking around him once more. A funny prickling on the back of his neck had made Harry feel he was being watched. But the street appeared to be deserted, and no light shone from any of the large square houses. He bent over his trunk again, but almost immediately stood up once more, his hand clenched on his wand. He had sensed, rather than heard it, someone or something was standing in the narrow gap between the garage and the fence behind him. Harry squinted at the black alleyway. If only it would move, then he'd know whether it was just a stray cat or something else. Lumos, Harry muttered, and a light appeared at the end of his wand, almost dazzling him. He held it high over his head, and the pebble-dashed walls of number 2 suddenly sparked. The garage door gleamed, and between them Harry saw quite distinctly the hulking outline of something very big with wide, gleaming eyes. Ooh, what is that? Harry stepped backwards. His legs hit his trunk, and he tripped. His wand flew out of his hand as he flung out an arm to break his fall, and he landed hard in the gutter. There was a deafening bang, and Harry threw up his hands to shield his eyes against a sudden blinding light. With a yell, he rolled back onto the pavement, just in time. A second later, a gigantic pair of wheels and headlights had screeched to a halt exactly where Harry had just been lying. They belonged, as Harry saw when he raised his head, to a triple-decker, violently purple bus. Violently purple. It's like, ah! So purple you can't even handle it! Which had appeared out of thin air. Gold lettering over the windscreen spelled, "The Night Bus." What is going on? This is a completely different start than the other books. Okay. For a split second, Harry wondered if he had been knocked silly by his fall. Then a conductor in a purple uniform leapt out of the bus and began to speak loudly to the night. Welcome to the night bus. Emergency transport for the stranded witch or wizard. Just stick out your wand hand, step on board, and we can take you anywhere you want to go. My name is Stan Shunpike, and I will be your conductor this evening. Let me know if that's the right kind of voice. The conductor stopped abruptly. He had just caught sight of Harry, who was still sitting on the ground. Harry snatched up his wand again and scrambled to his feet. Real Cockney for Stan. Okay. Close to, he saw that Stan Shunpike was only a few years older than he was. 18 or 19 at most, with large protruding ears and a fair few pimples. What were you doing down there? Said Stan, dropping his professional manner. Fell over, said Harry. What you fall over for? Sniggered Stan. I didn't do it on purpose, said Harry, annoyed. One of the knees in his jeans was torn, and the hand he had thrown out to break his fall was bleeding. He suddenly remembered why he had fallen over, and turned around quickly to stare at the alleyway between the garage and fence. The night bus's headlamps were flooding it with light, and it was empty. "What you looking at?" "What you looking at?" said Stan. "There was a big black thing," said Harry, pointing uncertainly into the gap. "Like a dog, but massive." He looked around at Stan, whose mouth was slightly open. With a feeling of unease, Harry saw Stan's eye move to the scar on Harry's forehead. "What's that on your head?" said Stan abruptly. "Nothing," said Harry quickly, flattening his hair over his scar. If the Ministry of Magic was looking for him, he didn't want to make it too easy for them. "What's your name?" Stan persisted. "Neville Longbottom," said Harry. What? He just... Even the name of Neville just makes everything funnier. Just his name. Oh, that's funny. "Neville Longbottom," said Harry, saying the first name that came into his head. So this bus," he went on quickly, hoping to distract Stan. "Did you say it goes anywhere?" "Yep," said Stan proudly. "Anywhere you like, long's it's on land. Can't do nothing under water. Here," he said, looking suspicious again. "You did flag us down, didn't you? Stuck out your wand then, didn't you?" "Yes," said Harry quickly. "Listen, how much would it be to get to London?" 11 sickles, said Stan. But for 13, you get hot... Wow, okay. 11 sickles, but for 13, you get hot chocolate. And for 15, you get an old water bottle and a toothbrush in the colour of your choice. Harry rummaged... Mark just turned into a little gremlin. Harry rummaged once more in his trunk, extracted his money bag, and shoved some silver into Stan's hand. He and Stan then lifted his trunk, with Hedwig's cage balanced on top, up the steps of the bus. There were no seats. Instead, half a dozen brass bedsteads stood beside the curtained windows. Candles were burning in brackets beside each bed, illuminating the wood-paneled walls. A tiny wizard in a nightcap at the rear of the bus muttered,
Not now, thanks. I'm pickling some slugs.
and rolled over in his sleep. You have this one, Stan whispered, shoving Harry's trunk under the bed right behind the driver, who was sitting in an armchair in front of the steering wheel. This is our driver, Ernie Pang. This is Neville Longbottom, Ernie Prang, an elderly wizard wearing very thick glasses, nodded to Harry, who nervously flattened his fringe again and sat down on his bed. Take her away, Ern, said Stan, sitting down in the armchair next to Ernie's. There was another tremendous bang, and next moment Harry found himself flat on his bed, thrown backwards by the speed of the night bus. Pulling himself up, Harry stared out of the dark window and saw that they were now bowling along a completely different street. Stan was watching Harry's stunned face with great enjoyment. This is where we was before you flagged us down, he said. Where are we, Ern? Somewhere in Wales? Arr, said Ernie, I guess. How come the muggles don't hear the bus? Oh no, this is Ernie. How come the muggles don't hear the bus? Said Harry. Them, said Stan contemptuously, don't listen properly, do they? Don't look properly either. Never notice nothing, they don't. Best go wake up Madam Marsh, Stan. Let me know about Ern, please. We'll be in Abergavenny in a minute. Do you know anything about...
Ern is Jamaican.
No, he's not.
That's what Tilly says.
He's not in the gym. Best go wake up Madam Marsh, Stan, said Ern. We'll be in Abergavenny in a minute. I'll try it out. Stan passed Harry's bed and disappeared up a narrow wooden staircase. Harry was still looking out of the windows, feeling increasingly nervous. Ernie didn't seem to have mastered the use of a steering wheel. The night bus kept mounting the pavement, but it didn't hit anything. Lines of lampposts, letterboxes, and bins jumped out of its way as it approached, and back into position once it had passed. Stan came back downstairs, followed by a faintly green witch wrapped in a traveling cloak. Here you go, Madam Marsh, said Stan happily, as Ern stamped on the brake and the bed slid a foot or so towards the front of the bus. Madam Marsh, give me some adjectives for Madam Marsh, please. He's not Jamaican.
He's arguing about it.
Okay, give me some adjectives for Madam Marsh. Madam Marsh clamped a handkerchief to her mouth and tottered down the steps. Stan threw her bag out after her and rammed the door shut. There was another loud bang. Oh, so she's gone. Okay. And they were thundering down a narrow country lane, trees leaping out of the way. Harry wouldn't have been able to sleep even if he had been traveling on a bus that didn't keep banging loudly and jumping 100 miles at a time. His stomach churned as he fell back to wondering what was going to happen to him, and whether the Dursleys had managed to get Aunt Marge off the ceiling yet. Stan had unfurled a copy of The Daily Prophet, and was now reading with his tongue between his teeth. A large photograph of a sunken-faced man with a long, matted hair blinked slowly at Harry from the front page. He looked strangely familiar. That man, Harry said, forgetting his troubles for a moment. He was on the Muggle News. Stanley turned to the front page and chuckled. Sirius Black, he said, nodding. Course he was on the Muggle News, Neville. Where you been? He gave a serious sort of chuckle. That's how he laughs. He gave a superior sort of chuckle at the blank look on Harry's face, removed the front page and handed it to Harry. You ought to read the papers. You ought to read the papers more, Neville. Harry held the paper up to the candlelight and read, Black still at large. Sirius Black, possibly the most infamous prisoner ever to be held in Azkaban Fortress, is still eluding capture. The Ministry of Magic confirmed today. Ministry of Magic, Cornelius Fudge. We are doing all we can. We're doing all we can to recapture Black, said the Minister for Magic, Cornelius Fudge. Oh, Cornelius Fudge, no.
We are doing all we can to recapture Black,
said the Minister for Magic, Cornelius Fudge. Sorry, okay, I'm trying to get this right back and forth. Here we go.
We are doing all we can to recapture Black,
said the Minister for Magic, Cornelius Fudge, this morning.
And we beg the magical community to remain calm.
Fudge has been criticized by some members of the International Federation of Warlocks for informing the Muggle Prime Minister of the crisis.
Well, really, I had to, don't you know?
said an irritable Fudge.
Black is mad. He's a danger to anyone who crosses him, magic or muggle. I have the Prime Minister's assurance that he will not breathe a word of Black's true identity to anyone. And let's face it, who would believe him if he did?
While Muggles have been told that Black is carrying a gun, a kind of metal wand which Muggles use to kill each other, the magical community lives in a fear of massacre, like that of 12 years ago, when Black murdered 13 people with a single curse. Fudge is hard to understand. Okay, I'll make him a bit clearer. I'll enunciate more. Now, okay, Sirius Black, serial killer, is loose. He's killed 12 people. No, 12 years ago. A massacre, murdered 13 people. So possibly the guy in the garage in the hallway, in the garage, that hulking figure. Maybe it's Jack the Ripper kind of situation she's putting into this book, being stalked by a killer all throughout the book. That'd be kind of cool. Okay, let's move on. Harry looked into the shadowed eyes of Sirius Black, the only part of the sunken face that seemed alive. Harry had never met a vampire. Oh, okay, so it's probably not because he's not huge. He probably like vampires aren't like that. Harry had never met a vampire, but he'd seen pictures of them in his Defense Against the Dark art classes, and Black, with his waxy white skin, looked just like one. Scary looking thing, innit? Said Stan, who had been watching Harry read. He murdered 13 people? Said Harry, handing the page back to Stan. With one curse? Yep, said Stan. In front of witnesses and all. Broad daylight. Big trouble it caused, didn't it, Ern? R. Aye, said Ern darkly. Stan swiveled in his armchair, his hands on the back, the better to look at Harry. Black was a big supporter of you-know-who, he said. What, Voldemort? Said Harry, without thinking. Even Stan's pimples went white. Ern jerked the steering wheel so hard that a whole farmhouse had to jump aside to avoid the bus. What? You a tree? Yelped Stan. What you say his name for? Sorry, said Harry hastily. Sorry, I forgot. Forgot, said Stan weakly. Blimey, my heart's going that fast. So Black was a supporter of you-know-who, Harry prompted apologetically. Yeah, said Stan, still rubbing his chest. Yeah, that's right. Very close to you-know-who, they say. Anyway, when little Harry Potter put pay to you-know-who, Harry nervously flattened his fringe... Oh, wait, what? What? Oh, okay, sorry. This section is very confusing. Yeah, said Stan, still rubbing his chest. Yeah, that's right. Very close to you-know-who, they say. Anyway, when little Harry Potter put paid to you-know-who, Harry nervously flattened his fringe down again. All you-know-who's supporters was tracked down, wasn't they, Ern? Most of them knew it was all over, with you-know-who gone, and they came quiet. But not Sirius Black. I heard he thought he'd been second command once you-know-who had taken over. Anyway, they cornered Black in the middle of a street full of muggles, and Black took out his wand and he blasted half the street apart. And a wizard got it, and so did a dozen muggles what got in the way. Horrible, eh? And you know what Black did then? Stan continued in a dramatic whisper. What? Said Harry. Laughed, said Stan. Just stood there and laughed. And when reinforcements from the Ministry of Magic got there, he went with them as quiet as anything, still laughing his head off. 'Cause he's mad, isn't he, Ern? Isn't he mad? If you weren't when you went to Azkaban, he will be now. I don't know if I should be doing that accent, but let me know if not. I don't know, said Ern in his slow voice. Okay, I don't believe you. He's not Jamaican. He's not Jamaican. Because he says slow. No, I'm going to go with my original voice. Pay attention to whatever he wrote down in the chat.
If he weren't when he went to also Cockney, if he weren't when he went to Azkaban, he will be now, said Ern in a slow voice. I blow myself up before I set foot in that place. Serves him right, mind. After what he did.
They had a job covering it up, didn't they, Ern? Stan said. Whole street blown up and all the muggles dead. What was it they said had happened, Ern?
Gas explosion,
grunted Ernie. And now he's out, said Stan, examining the newspaper picture of Black's gaunt face again. Never been a breakout from Azkaban before, has there, Ern? Beats me how he did it. Frightening, eh, mine? I don't fancy his chances against them Azkaban guards, eh, Ern? Jamaican. Ernie suddenly shivered. Talk about something else, Stan. This is the worst accent. I can't even do it. Yes, a good lad. Them Azkaban guards give me the cobble wobbles. It's so bad. Stan put the paper away reluctantly, and Harry leaned against the window of the night bus, feeling worse than ever. He couldn't help imagining what Stan might be telling his passengers in a few nights' time. Hear about that Harry Potter blew up his arm. We'd had him here on the night bus, didn't we, Ern? He was trying to run for it. He, Harry, had broken wizard law just like Sirius Black. Was inflating Aunt Marge bad enough to land him in Azkaban? Harry didn't know anything about the wizard prison, though everyone he'd ever heard speak of it did so in the same fearful tone. Hagrid, the Hogwarts gamekeeper, had spent 2 months there only last year. Harry wouldn't soon forget the look of terror on Hagrid's face when he had been told where he was going. And Hagrid was one of the bravest people Harry knew. The night bus rolled through the darkness, scattering bushes and bollards, telephone boxes and trees, and Harry lay restless and miserable on his feather bed. After a while, Stan remembered that Harry had paid for his hot chocolate, but poured it all over Harry's pillow when the bus moved abruptly from Anglesey to Aberdeen. One by one, wizards and witches in dressing gowns and slippers descended from the upper floors to leave the bus. They all looked very pleased to go. Finally, Harry was the only passenger left. Right then, Neville, said Stan, clapping his hands. Whereabouts in London? Diagon Alley, said Harry. Righto, said Stan. Hold tight then. Bang! They were thundering along Charing Cross Road. Harry sat up and watched buildings and benches squeezing themselves out of the night bus's way. The sky was getting a little lighter. He would lie low for a couple of hours, go to Gringotts the moment it opened, then set off. Where, he didn't know. Hey, Gio. Hi, Holly. Ern slammed on the brakes, and the night bus skidded to a halt in front of a small and shabby-looking pub, the Leaky Cauldron, behind which lay the magical entrance to Diagon Alley. Thanks, Harry said to Ern. He jumped down the steps and helped Stan lower his trunk and Hedwig's cage onto the pavement. Well, said Harry, bye then. But Stan wasn't paying attention. Still standing in the doorway to the bus, he was goggling at the shadowy entrance to the Leaky Cauldron. Wait, who's saying this? There you are, Harry, said a voice. I don't know who it is. Before Harry could turn, he felt a hand on his shoulder. At the same time, Stan shouted, Blimey! Ern! Come here! Come here! Harry looked up at the owner of the hand on his shoulder and felt a bucketful of ice cascade into his stomach. He had walked right into Cornelius Fudge, the minister for magic himself. Stan leapt onto the pavement beside him. What did you call Neville? Minister? He said excitedly. Fudge, a portly little man in long, pinstriped cloak, looked cold and exhausted.
Neville, he repeated, frowning. This is Harry Potter.
I knew it, Stan shouted gleefully. Ern, guess who Neville is, Ern? He's Harry Potter. I can see his scar.
Yes, said Fudge testily. Well, I'm very glad the night bus picked Harry up, but he and I need to step inside the Leaky Cauldron now.
That better? Fudge increased the pressure on Harry's shoulder, and Harry found himself being steered inside the pub. A stooping figure bearing a lantern appeared through the door behind the bar. It was Tom, the wizened, toothless landlord. You got him, Minister, said Tom. Will you be wanting anything else? Beer, brandy? I'm going to figure out his voice there.
Perhaps a pot of tea,
said Fudge, who still hadn't let go of Harry. There was a loud scraping and puffing from behind them, and Stan and Ern appeared, carrying Harry's trunk and Hedwig's cage and looking around excitedly. How come you didn't tell us who you were, eh, Neville? He's still calling him Neville, said Stan, beaming at Harry, while Ernie's owlish face peered intensely over Stan's shoulder.
And a private parlour, please, Tom,
said Fudge pointedly. Bye, Harry said miserably to Stan and Ern as Tom beckoned Fudge towards the passage that led from the bar. Bye, Neville, called Stan. He's still calling him Neville. You can go a bit higher for Fudge. Okay. Fudge marched Harry along the narrow passage after Tom's lantern, and then into a small parlor. Tom clicked his fingers. A fire burst into life in the grate, and he bowed himself out of the room.
Sit down, Harry,
said Fudge, indicating a chair by the fire. Harry sat down, feeling goosebumps rising up his arms, despite the glow of the fire. Fudge took off his pinstriped cloak and tossed it aside, then hitched up the trousers of his bottle green suit and sat down opposite Harry.
I am Cornelius Fudge, Harry, the Minister for Magic.
Harry already knew this, of course. He had seen Fudge once before, but as he had been wearing his father's invisibility cloak at the time, Fudge wasn't to know that. Tom the innkeeper reappeared, wearing an apron over his nightshirt and bearing a tray of tea and crumpets. He placed the tray on the table between Fudge and Harry and left the parlor, closing the door behind him.
Well, Harry, said Fudge, pouring out tea, you've had us all in the right flap, I don't mind telling you. Running away from your aunt and uncle's house like that, I'd started to think. But you're safe, and that's what matters.
Fudge buttered himself a crumpet and pushed the plate towards Harry.
Eat, Harry. You look dead on your feet. Now then, you will be pleased to hear that we have dealt with the unfortunate blowing up of Miss Marjorie Dursley. 2 members of the Accidental Magic Reversal Department were dispatched to Privet Drive a few hours ago. Miss Dursley has been punctured and her memory has been modified.
Yeah, okay, maybe he smacks his lips.
She has no recollection of the incident at all.
I think that's where characters come alive for me, when I find their non-vocal tendencies or their non-verbal tendencies, something like that. Music. Oh gosh, thank you. I totally forgot. This is the one time I forgot the music. Let's get that going, shall we? 24 hours. Nice job, Mark. Okay, I got the music back. Phew, thanks for reminding me. If you read something like that, let me know, because like the music's so essential to the experience. Okay.
Eat, Harry. You look dead on your feet. Now then,
you will be... Oh, sorry, I already did this. Fudge smiled at Harry over the rim of his teacup, rather than like an uncle surveying a favorite nephew. Okay, so he's less stern, I think. He's still stern, but he's nice. Harry, who couldn't believe his ears, opened his mouth to speak, couldn't think of anything to say, and closed it again.
Ah, you're worrying about the reaction of your aunt and uncle,
said Fudge.
Well, I won't deny that they are extremely angry, Harry, but they are prepared to take you back next summer as long as you stay at Hogwarts for the Christmas and Easter holidays.
Harry unstuck his throat. I always stay at Hogwarts for the Christmas and Easter holidays, he said, and I don't ever want to go back to Privet Drive.
Now, I'm sure you'll feel differently once you've calmed down,
said Fudge in a worried tone.
They're your family, after all, and I'm sure you are fond of each other very deep down.
Fudge is a bit less of a caricature. Okay, thank you. He doesn't speak moistly, does he? It doesn't occur to Harry to put Fudge right. He was still waiting to hear what was going to happen to him now.
So all that remains,
said Fudge, now battering himself a second crumpet,
is to decide where you're going to spend the last 2 weeks of your holidays. I suggest you take a room here at the Leaky Cauldron.
Hang on, blurted Harry. What about my punishment? Fudge blinked.
Punishment?
I broke the law, Harry said. The decree for the restriction of underage wizardry.
My dear boy, we're not going to punish you for a little thing like that,
cried Fudge, waving his crumpet impatiently.
It was an accident. We don't send people to Azkaban just for blowing up their aunts.
But this didn't tally at all with Harry's past dealings with the Ministry of Magic. Last year, I got an official warning just because a house elf smashed a pudding in my uncle's house, said Harry, frowning. The Ministry of Magic said I'd be expelled from Hogwarts if there was any more magic there. Unless Harry's eyes were deceiving him, Fudge was suddenly looking awkward.
Circumstances change, Harry. We have to take into account, in the present climate. Surely you don't want to be expelled?
Of course I don't, said Harry.
Well then, what's all this fuss about? Well then, what's all the fuss about?
Laughed Fudge airily.
Now, have a crumpet, Harry, while I go and see if Tom's got a room for you.
Fudge's voice is okay. Read the comments for the next chapter. Thank you. Fudge strode out of the parlor and Harry stared after him. There was something extremely odd going on. Why had Fudge been waiting for him at the leaky cauldron, if not to punish him for what he'd done? And now Harry came to think of it, surely it wasn't usual for the Minister of Magic himself to get involved in matters of underage magic. Fudge came back, accompanied by Tom the innkeeper.
Room 11's free, Harry, said Fudge. I think you'll be very comfortable. Just one thing, and I'm sure you'll understand. I don't want you wandering off into Muggle London, all right? Keep to Diagon Alley. And you're to be back here before dark each night. Surely you understand. Tom will be keeping an eye on you for me.
Okay, said Harry slowly. But why?
Don't want to lose you again, do we?
Said Fudge with a hearty laugh.
Don't want you to lose you again, do we?
Said Fudge with a hearty laugh.
No. Best we know where you are. I mean,
Fudge cleared his throat loudly and picking up his pinstripe cloak.
Well, I'll be off. Plenty to do, you know.
Have you any luck with black yet? Harry asked. Fudge's fingers slipped on the silver fastening of his cloak.
What's that? Oh, you've heard. Well, no, not yet. But it's only a matter of time. The Azkaban guards have never yet failed, and they are angrier than I've ever seen.
Fudge shuddered slightly.
So, I'll say goodbye.
He held out his hand, and Harry, shaking it, had a sudden idea. Minister, can I ask you something?
Certainly,
smiled Fudge. Well, third years at Hogwarts are allowed to visit Hogsmeade, but my aunt and uncle didn't sign the permission form. Do you think you could? Fudge was looking uncomfortable.
He said, no. No, I'm very sorry, Harry, but as I'm not your parent or guardian.
But you're the Minister of Magic, said Harry eagerly. If you gave me permission...
No, I'm sorry, Harry, but rules are rules, said Fudge flatly. Perhaps you'll be able to visit Hogsmeade next year. In fact, I think it best if you don't. Yes. Well, I'll be off. Enjoy your stay, Harry.
And with a last smile and shake of Harry's hand, Fudge left the room. Tom now moved forward, beaming at Harry.
If you'll follow me, Mr. Potter, he said, I've already taken your things up. I've already taken your things up.
Harry followed Tom up a handsome wooden staircase to a door with a brass number 11 on it, which Tom unlocked and opened for him. Inside was a very comfortable-looking bed, some highly polished oak furniture, a cheerfully crackling fire. He's just so camera shy, you know. A cheerfully crackling fire, and perched on top of the wardrobe. Hedwig! Harry gasped. The snowy owl clicked her beak and fluttered down onto Harry's arm.
A very smart owl you've got. Very smart owl you've got there, chuckled Tom. Arriving about 5 minutes after you did. If there's anything you need, Mr. Potter, don't hesitate to ask.
He gave another bow and left. He's got all his teeth are gone. Harry sat on his bed for a long time, absent-mindedly stroking Hedwig, and then they kissed. Gotcha! The sky outside the window was changing rapidly from deep, velvety blue to cold, steely gray, and then slowly to pink shot with gold. Harry could hardly believe that he'd only left Privet Drives a few hours ago, that he wasn't expelled, and that he was now facing 2 completely Dursley-free weeks. It's been a very weird night, Hedwig, he yawned. and without even removing his glasses, he slumped back onto his pillows and fell asleep. There is something adrift? No, there's something happening. There's something happening. I don't know what.
Afoot.
Afoot. That's what I was. There's something adrift in the waters. We have to get it out. What was it again? Afoot. Yeah. Scratch that itch, Dexter. Okay. You know what? I think I might go a full chapter today. Maybe. Oh gosh, I don't know if I have enough time. We'll see. We'll see. Chapter 4, The Leaky Cauldron. It took Harry several days to get used to his strange new freedom. Never before had he been able to get up whenever he wanted, or eat whatever he fancied. He could even go wherever he liked, as long as it was in Diagon Alley. And as this long cobbled street was packed with the most fascinating wizarding shops in the world, Harry felt no desire to break his word to Fudge and stray back into the Muggle world. Harry ate his breakfast each morning in the Leaky Cauldron, where he liked watching the other guests. Funny little witches from the country, up for a day's shopping, venerable-looking wizards arguing over the latest article in Transfiguration Today, wild-looking warlocks, raucous dwarfs, and once what looked suspiciously like a hag, who ordered a plate of raw liver from behind a thick woolen balaclava. After breakfast, Harry would go out into the backyard, take out his wand, tap the third brick from the left above the dustbin, and stand back as the archway into Diagon Alley opened in the wall. I like this Harry by himself in Diagon Alley. This is fun. This is fun. Anything could happen, because the last one was, okay, we're just stopping here to get to Hogwarts. And this one, thanks for the question, Ken. This one is Harry on the run. Harry in danger. Harry being a bit more grown up and not having anybody's help, except for Fudge. I mean, that was help. His life didn't change completely, so there was still help there. Harry spent the long sunny days exploring the shops and eating under the brightly colored umbrellas outside cafes. It's very European.
I wonder why.
Oh, I wonder why. Yeah. Oh, why is it European?
Is this London?
Wow, it feels like this would take place in London. Okay, the brightly colored umbrellas outside cafes, where his fellow diners were showing each other their purchases. It's a lunar scope, old boy. No more messing around with Pont Moonshot, see? Or else discussing the case of Sirius Black. Personally, I won't let any of the children out alone until he's back to Azkaban. Harry didn't have to do his homework under the blankets by torchlight anymore. Now he could sit in the bright sunshine outside Florian Fortescue's ice cream parlor, finishing all his essays with occasional help from Florian Fortescue himself, who, apart from knowing a great deal about medieval witch burnings, gave Harry free Sundays every half hour. Oh, that's the dream. That is the dream. Once Harry had refilled his money bag with gold galleons, silver sickles, and bronze nuts, spelled with a K-N-U, from his vault at Gringotts, he needed to exercise a lot of self-control not to spend the whole lot at once. He had to keep reminding himself that he had 5 years to go at Hogwarts, and how it would feel to ask the Dursleys for money for spellbooks, to stop himself buying a handsome set of solid gold gobstones. A wizarding game rather like marbles, in which the stones squirted a nasty-smelling liquid into the other player's face when they lost a point. Ew. Why would you ever want to play that? Like, oh, I can't wait for this to happen to my partner. Yeah. Actually, I probably wouldn't try that. It's just so aggressive, that game. You were surely tempted, too, by the perfect moving model of the galaxy in a large glass ball, which would have meant he had never had to take another astronomy lesson. But the thing that tested Harry's resolution most appeared in his favorite shop, Quality Quidditch Supplies, a week after he'd arrived at the Leaky Cauldron. Curious to know what the crowd in the shop was staring at, Harry edged his way inside and squeezed in amongst the excited witches and wizards until he glimpsed a newly erected podium on which was mounted the most magnificent broom he had ever seen in his life. Square-jawed wizard.
Just come out! Prototype!
No. Just come out! Prototype! A square-jawed wizard was telling his companion.
It's the
fastest broom. It's the fastest broom in the world, isn't it, Dad?
Squeezed a boy younger than Harry, who was swinging off his father's arm. Irish international sides just put in an order for 7 of these beauties, the proprietor of the shop told the crowd, and they're favourites for the World Cup. A large witch in front of Harry moved, and he was able to read the sign next to the broom. Are they going to update the broom, his broom? The Firebolt. This state-of-the-art racing broom sports a streamlined, superfine handle of ash, treated with a diamond-hard polish, and hand-numbered with its own registration number. Each individually selected birch twig in the broomtail has been honed to aerodynamic perfection, giving the Firebolt unsurpassable balance and pinpoint precision. The Firebolt has an acceleration of 0 to 150 miles an hour in 10 seconds and incorporates an unbreakable braking charm. Price on request. Price on request. Harry didn't like to think how much gold the Firebolt would cost. He had never wanted anything so much in his whole life, but he had never lost a Quidditch match on his Nimbus 2000. And what was the point in emptying his Gringotts vault for the Firebolt when he had a very good broom already? Harry didn't ask for the price, but he returned almost every day after that just to look at the Firebolt. There were, however, things that Harry needed to buy. He went to the apothecary to replenish his store of potions ingredients, and as his school robes were now several inches too short in the arm and leg, he visited Madame Malkin's robes for all occasions and brought new ones. Most important of all, he had to buy his new school books, which would include those for his 2 new subjects, Care of Magical Creatures and Divination. Interesting. Looking forward to what those classes are. Harry got a surprise as he looked in at the bookshop window. Instead of the usual display of gold-embossed spell books the size of paving slabs, there was a large iron cage behind the glass, which held about 100 copies of the Monster Book of Monsters. Torn pages were flying everywhere as the books grappled with each other, locked together in furious wrestling matches and snapping aggressively. What? Oh, this is like the same book that flew over to him. So they're all like, and just like barking and snapping at each other. Harry pulled his book list out of his pocket and consulted it for the first time. The Monster Book of Monsters was listed as the set book for care and magical creatures. Now Harry understood why Hagrid had said it would come in useful. He felt relieved. He'd been wondering whether Hagrid wanted to help with some terrifying new pet. As Harry entered Flourish and Blots, the manager came hurrying towards him.
Hogwarts, he said abruptly. Come to get your new books?
Yes, sorry, I need...
Get out of the way,
said the manager impatiently, brushing Harry aside.
He drew on
a pair of very thick gloves, picking up a large, knobbly walking stick and proceeded toward the door of the monster books cage.
Hang on, said Harry quickly. I've already got one of those. Have you?
A look of enormous relief spread over the manager's face.
Thank goodness for that. I've been waiting 5 times already this morning. I've been bitten 5 times already this morning.
A loud, ripping noise rent the air. 2 of the monster books had seized the third and were pulling it apart. Whoa! These are crazy little books.
Stop it! Stop it!
Cried the manager, poking the walking stick through the bars and knocking the books apart.
I'm never stocking them again. Never. It's been bedlam. Bedlam. I thought we'd seen the worst when we bought 200 copies of the Invisible Book of Invisibility. Cost a fortune and we never found them. Well, is there anything else I can help you with?
Yes, said Harry, looking down his book list. I need Unfogging the Future by Cassandra Vablatsky.
Ah, starting divination, are you?
Said the manager, stripping off his gloves and leading Harry into the back of the shop, where there was a corner devoted to fortune-telling. A small table was stacked with volumes, such as Predicting the Unpredictable, Insulate Yourself Against Shocks and Broken Balls When Fortunes Turn Foul. J.K. Rowling, she was being naughty.
God, I hate broken balls.
She was being naughty.
Here you are,
said the manager, who had climbed up a set of steps to take down a thick black-bound book.
Unfogging the Future. Very good guide to all your basic fortune-telling methods. Palmistry, crystal balls, bird and trails.
But Harry wasn't listening. His eyes had fallen on another book, which was among a display on a small table. Death Omens. What to do when you know the worst is coming.
Oh, I wouldn't read that if I were you,
said the assistant lightly, looking to see what Harry was staring at. You'll start seeing death omens everywhere. It's enough to frighten anyone to death. But Harry continued to stare at the front cover of the book. It showed a black dog, large as a bear, with gleaming eyes. Ooh! It looked oddly familiar. The assistant pressed Unfogging the Future into Harry's hands. Anything else? He said. Yes, said Harry, tearing his eyes away from the dogs and dazedly consulting his book list. I need Intermediate Transfiguration and the Standard Book of Spells, Grade 3. How much do we have left on this one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You know what? I'm just going to go long today. I just feel like going long. I'm going to finish the chapter. All right? Harry emerged from Flourish and Blots 10 minutes later with his new books under his arms and made his way back to the leaky cauldron, hardly noticing where he was going and bumping into several people. He tramped up the stairs to his room, went inside, and tipped his books onto his bed. Somebody had been in to tidy. The windows were open and sun was pouring inside. Harry could hear the buses rolling by in the unseen Muggle Street behind him, and the sound of the invisible crowd below in Diagon Alley. He caught sight of himself in the mirror over the basin. It can't have been a death omen, he told his reflection defiantly. I was panicked when I saw that thing in Magnolia Crescent. It was probably just a stray dog. He raised his hand automatically and tried to make his hair lie flat. His mirror in a wheezy... You're fighting a losing battle there, dear, said his mirror in a wheezy voice. Actually, here's a break. Question for you to fill in. What is the funniest thing you ever saw a stranger do? I think that's a fun question. What is the funniest thing you ever saw a stranger do? As the days slipped by, Harry started looking wherever he went for a sign of Ron or Hermione. Plenty of Hogwarts students were arriving in Diagon Alley now, with the start of term so near. Harry met Seamus Finnegan and Dean Thomas, his fellow Gryffindors, in Quality Quidditch Supplies, where they too were ogling the firebolt. He also ran into the real Neville Longbottom, a round-faced, forgetful boy, outside Flourish and Blots. Harry then stopped to chat. Neville appeared to have mislaid his book list and was being told off by his very formidable-looking grandmother. Harry hoped she never found out that he'd pretended to be Neville while on the run from the Ministry of Magic. Harry woke on the last day of the holidays, thinking that he would at least meet Ron and Hermione tomorrow on the Hogwarts Express. He got up, dressed, went for a last look at the firebolt, and was just wondering where he'd have lunch when someone yelled his name and he turned. Who is this? Ron. Harry! Harry! There they were, both of them, sitting outside Florian Fortescue's ice cream parlor. Oh gosh, I need a gulp of water. There we go. Ron looked incredibly freckly. Hermione very brown, both waving frantically at him. Finally, said Ron, grinning at Harry as he sat down. We went to the leaky cauldron, but they said you'd left, and we went to Flourish and Blots and Madame Malkin's, and... I got all my school stuff last week, Harry explained. And how come you know I'm staying at the leaky cauldron? Dad, said Ron simply. Mr. Weasley, who worked at the Ministry of Magic, would of course have heard the whole story of what had happened to Uncle Marge. Did you really blow up your aunt, Harry? Said Hermione in a very serious voice. I didn't mean to, said Harry, while Ron roared with laughter. I just lost control. It's not funny, Ron, said Hermione sharply. Honestly, I'm amazed Harry wasn't expelled. So am I, admitted Harry. Forget expelled. I thought I was going to be arrested. He looked at Ron. Your dad doesn't know why Fudge let me off, does he? Probably because it's... Okay, I'm going to log off now because it says 1 minute remaining. So I'm going to end this, going to restart it immediately and finish the chapter however long that takes us, okay? So log back on immediately, and we're going to cheer for the nurses as soon as 7 hits here. Nurses! Where are my hands? Cheer for the nurses. Yeah! Yes, nurses! Good job, nurses! And, all healthcare professionals, not just nurses. Yay! Yay! Okay. Oh, what just happened? Oh my gosh. This was a very loose copy. This is Nathan's school copy, and pages just fell out.
No.
So I'm gonna have to organize those back in. I didn't do anything, Nathan. Oh man. Okay, where was I? 40 something. Okay, there we go. Woo! Okay, there we go. I'm going to continue reading from page 47. Your dad doesn't know why Fudge let me off, does he? Music's back. Probably because it's you, isn't it? Shrugged Ron, still chuckling. Probably because it's you, isn't it? Shrugged Ron, still chuckling. Famous Harry Potter and all that. I'd hate to see what the ministry'd do to me if I blew up my aunt. Mind you, they'd have to dig me up first because Mum would have killed me. Anyway, you can ask Dad yourself this evening. We're staying at the Leaky Cauldron tonight too, so you can come to King's Cross with us tomorrow. Hermione's there as well. Hermione nodded, beaming. Mum and Dad dropped me off this morning with all my Hogwarts things. Excellent, said Harry happily. So, have you got all your new books and stuff? Look at this, said Ron, pulling a long, thin box out of a bag and opening it. Brand new wand, 14 inches, willow containing one unique unicorn tail hair. And we've got all our books. He pointed at a large bag under his chair. What about these monster books, eh? The assistant nearly cried when we said we wanted 2. What's all that, Hermione? Harry asked, pointing at not 1, but 3 bulging bags in the chair next to her. Well, I'm taking more new subjects than you, aren't I? Said Hermione. Those are my books for arithmetic, care of magical creatures, divination, ancient rooms, Muggle studies. What are you doing Muggle studies for? Said Ron, rolling his eyes at Harry. You're Muggle-born. Your mum and dad are Muggles. You already know all about Muggles. But it'll be fascinating to study them from the wizarding point of view, said Hermione earnestly. Are you planning to eat or sleep at all this year, Hermione? Asked Harry, while Ron sniggered. Hermione ignored them. I've still got 10 galleons, she said, checking her purse. It's my birthday in September, and Mum and Dad gave me some money to get myself an early birthday present. How about a nice book? Said Ron innocently. No, I don't think so, said Hermione composedly. I really want an owl. I mean, Harry's got Hedwig and you've got Errol. I haven't, said Ron. Errol's a family owl. All I've got is Scabbers. He pulled his pet rat out of his pocket. I want to get him checked over, he added, placing Scabbers on the table in front of them. I don't think Egypt agreed with him. Scabbers was looking thinner than usual, and there was a definite droop to his whiskers. There's a magical creature shop just over there, said Harry, who knew Diagon Alley very well by now. You can see if they've got anything for Scabbers, and Hermione can get her owl. So they paid for their ice creams and crossed the street to the magical menagerie. But there wasn't much room inside. Every inch of wall was hidden by cages. It was smelly and very noisy because the occupants of these cages were all squeaking, squawking, jabbering, or hissing. The witch behind the counter was already advising a wizard on the care of double-ended newts, so Harry, Ron, and Hermione waited, examining the cages. A pair of enormous purple toads sat gulping wetly and feasting on dead bowflies. A gigantic tortoise with a jewel-encrusted shell was glittering near the window. Poisonous orange snails were oozing slowly up the side of their glass tank, and a fat white rabbit kept changing into a silk top hat and back again with a loud popping noise. This place is mayhem! There were 3 cats of every color, a noisy cage of ravens, a basket of funny custard-colored fur balls that were humming loudly, and on the counter, a vast cage of sleek black rats, which were playing some sort of skipping game, using their long, bald tails. The double-ended newt wizard left, and Ron approached the counter. It's my rat, he told the witch. He's been a bit off color ever since I brought him back from Egypt.
Bang him on the counter,
said the witch. Well, I'm thinking of old school, but it could be like any witch there. Okay, but
bang him on the counter,
said the witch, pulling a pair of heavy black spectacles out of her pocket. Ron lifted Scabbers out of his inside pocket and placed him next to the cage of his fellow rats, who stopped their skipping trips and scuffled to the wire for a better look. Like nearly everything Ron owned, Scabbers the rat was second-hand. He had once belonged to Ron's brother Percy, and a bit battered. Next to the glossy rats in the cage, he looked especially woebegone. Said the witch, picking Scabbers up.
How old is this rat?
Dunno, said Ron. Quite old? He used to belong to my brother.
What powers does he have?
said the witch, examining Scabbers closely. Said Ron. The truth was that Scabbers had never shown the faintest trace of interesting powers. The witch's eyes moved from Scabbers' tattered left ear to his front paw, which had a toe missing, and tutted loudly.
He's been through the mill, this one,
she said. It was like that when Percy gave him to me, said Ron defensively.
An ordinary, common or garden rat like this can't be expected to live longer than 3 years or so,
said the witch.
Now, if you were looking for something a bit more hard-wearing, you might like one of these.
She indicated the black rats, who promptly started skipping again. Ron muttered, Show-offs?
Well, if you don't want a replacement, you can try this rat tonic,
said the witch, reaching under the counter and bringing out a small red bottle. Okay, said Ron. How much? Ouch! Ron buckled as something huge and orange came soaring from the top of the highest cage, landed on his head, and then propelled itself, spitting madly at Scabbers.
No, Crookshanks, no!
cried the witch. But Scabbers shot from between her hands like a bar of soap, landed splay-legged on the floor, and then scarpered for the door. Scabbers! Ron shouted, herring out of the shop after him. Harry followed. It took them nearly 10 minutes to find Scabbers, who had taken refuge under a wastepaper bin outside Quality Quidditch Supplies. Ron stuffed the trembling rat back into his pocket and straightened up, massaging his head. What was that? It was either a very big cat or quite a small tiger, said Harry. Where's Hermione? Probably getting an owl. They made their way back, up the crowded street to the magical menagerie. As they reached it, Hermione came out. But she wasn't carrying an owl. Her hands were clamped tightly around the enormous ginger cat. Why did they say around the enormous ginger cat?
The one that was on Ron's head.
Oh, okay. I was very confused by that. You bought that monster? Said Ron, his mouth hanging open. How gorgeous! He's gorgeous, isn't he? No, he's gorgeous, isn't he? Said Hermione, glowing. That was a matter of opinion, thought Harry. The cat's ginger fur was thick and fluffy, but it was definitely a bit bow-legged, and its face looked grumpy and oddly squashed, as though it had run headlong into a brick wall. Now that Scabbers was out of sight, however, the cat was purring contentedly in Hermione's arms. Not too long left. Hermione, that thing nearly scalped me, said Ron. You didn't mean to, did you, Crookshanks? Said Hermione. What about Scabbers? Said Ron, pointing at the lump in his chest pocket. He needs rest and relaxation. How's he going to get it with that thing around? That reminds me, you forgot your rat tonic, said Hermione, slapping the small red bottle into Ron's hand. And stop worrying, Crookshanks. Crookshanks will be sleeping in my dormitory and Scabbers in yours. What's the problem? Poor Crookshanks. That witch said he'd been in there for ages. No one wanted him. I wonder why, said Ron sarcastically as they set off towards the leaky cauldron. They found Mr. Weasley sitting in the bar, reading the Daily Prophet. Harry, he said, smiling as he looked up. How are you? Fine, thanks, said Harry, as he, Ron, and Hermione joined Mr. Weasley with all their shopping. Mr. Weasley put down his paper, and Harry saw the now familiar picture of Sirius Black staring back at him. I still haven't caught him, then, he asked. No, said Mr. Weasley, looking extremely grave. They've pulled us all off our regular jobs at the ministry to try and find him, but no luck so far. Shut up. Would we get a reward if we caught him? Asked Ron. It'd be good to get some more money. Don't be ridiculous, Ron, said Mr. Weasley, who on closer inspection looked very strained. Black's not going to be caught by a 13-year-old wizard. It's the Azkaban guards who'll get him back. You mark my words. At that moment, Mrs. Weasley entered the bar, laden with shopping and followed by the twins, Fred and George, who were about to start their 5th year at Hogwarts, the newly elected head boy, Percy, and the Weasleys' youngest child and only girl, Ginny. I'm gonna try get her voice. Ginny, who had always been very taken with Harry, seemed even more heartily embarrassed than usual when she saw him, perhaps because he had saved her life during their last term at Hogwarts. She went very red and muttered, Hello, without looking at him. Percy, however, held out his hand solemnly, as though he and Harry had never met, and said, "Harry, how nice to see you." "Hello, Percy," said Harry, trying not to laugh. "I hope you're well," said Percy, pompously shaking hands. It was rather like being introduced to the mayor. "Very well, thanks." "Harry," said Fred, elbowing Percy out of the way and bowing deeply. "Simply splendid to see you, old boy." "Marvellous," said George, pushing Fred aside and seizing Harry's hand in turn. "Absolutely spiffing." Percy scowled.
That's enough now,
said Mrs. Weasley. "Mum," said Fred, as though he'd only just spotted her, and seized her hand too. How really corking to see you."
I said that's enough.
said Mrs. Weasley, depositing her shopping in an empty chair.
Hello, Harry, dear. I suppose you've heard our exciting news.
She pointed to the brand new silver badge on Percy's chest.
Second head boy in the family,
she said, swelling with pride. "And lost," Fred muttered under his breath.
I don't doubt that,
said Mrs. Weasley, frowning suddenly.
I noticed I haven't made you two prefects.
What do we want to be prefects for? Said George, looking revolted at the very idea. It'd take all the fun out of life. Ginny giggled.
You want to set a bad example to your sister,
snapped Mrs. Weasley. Ginny's got other brothers to set her an example, Mother, said Percy loftily. I'm going up to change for dinner. He disappeared, and George heaved a sigh. "We've tried to shut him in a pyramid," he told Harry, "but Mum spotted us." Dinner that night was a very enjoyable affair. Tom, the innkeeper, put 3 tables together in the parlor, and the 7 Weasleys, Harry and Hermione, ate their way through 5 delicious courses. Fred. Are we getting to King's Cross tomorrow, Dad?" asked Fred, as they tucked into a sumptuous chocolate pudding. "The ministry's provided a couple of cars," said Mr. Weasley. Everyone looked up at him. Why? Said Percy curiously. "It's because of you, Percy," said George seriously. "And there'll be little flags on the bonnets with HB on them." "For Hummingbird's big head." "For Humongous Big Head," said Fred. Everyone except Percy and Mrs. Weasley snorted into their pudding. Why are the ministry providing cars, Father?" Percy asked again in a dignified voice. "Well, as we haven't got any more," said Mr. Weasley, "and as I work there, they're doing me a favour." His voice was casual, but Harry couldn't help noticing that Mr. Weasley's ears had gone red, just like Ron's did when he was under pressure.
Good job too, said Mrs. Weasley briskly. Do you realise how much luggage you've all got between you? A nice sight you'd be on the Muggle Underground. You're all packed, aren't you?
Ron hasn't put all his new things in his trunk yet, said Percy in a long, suffering voice. He's dumped them on my bed.
You better go and pack properly, Ron, because we won't have much time in the morning.
Mrs. Weasley called down the table. Ron scowled at Percy. After dinner, everyone felt very full and asleep. One by one, they made their way upstairs to their rooms to check their things for the next day. Ron and Percy were next door to Harry. He had just closed and locked his own trunk when he heard angry voices through the wall and went to see what was going on. The door of number 12 was ajar, and Percy was shouting, "It was here, on the bedside table. I took it off for polishing. I haven't touched it, all right?" Ron roared back. "What's up?" said Harry. "My head boy badge has gone," said Percy, rounding on Harry. "So's Scabbers' rat tonic," said Ron, throwing things out of his trunk to look. "I think I might have left it in the bar." "You're not going anywhere till you've found my badge," yelled Percy. I'll get Scabbers' stuff. I'm packed," Harry said to Ron, and he went downstairs. Harry was halfway along the passage to the bar, which was now very dark, when he heard another pair of angry voices coming from the parlor. A second later, he recognized them as Mr. and Mrs. Weasley's. He hesitated, not wanting them to know he'd heard them rowing, when the sound of his own name made him stop, then move closer to the parlor door. "Makes no sense not to tell him," Mr. Weasley was saying heatedly. "Harry's got a right to know.
I've tried to tell Fudge, but he insists on treating Harry like a child. He's 13 years old now.
Arthur, the truth would terrify him. Arthur, the truth would terrify him.
He's just so she's suddenly Russian.
Arthur, the truth would terrify him, said Mrs. Weasley shrilly. Do you really think to send Harry back to school with that hanging over him? For heaven's sake, he's happy not knowing.
I don't want to make him miserable. I want to put him on his guard, retorted Weasley. You know what Harry and Ron are like, wandering off by themselves. They've ended up in the Forbidden Forest twice, but Harry mustn't do that this year. When I think what could have happened to him that night he ran away from home, if the night boss hadn't picked him up, I'm prepared to bet he would have been dead before the Ministry found him.
But he's not dead. He's fine. So what's the point,
Molly? They say Sirius Black's mad, and maybe he is, but he was clever enough to escape from Azkaban, and that's supposed to be impossible. It's been 3 weeks, and no one's seen hide nor hair of him, and I don't care what Fudge keeps telling the Daily Prophet. We're no nearer catching Black than inventing self-spelling wands. The only thing we know for sure is what Black's after.
But Harry will be perfectly safe at Hogwarts.
We thought Azkaban was perfectly safe. If Black can break out of Azkaban, he can break into Hogwarts.
But no one's really sure that Black's after Harry.
There was a thud on wood, and Harry was sure Mr. Weasley had banged his fist on the table.
Molly, how many times do I have to tell you? They didn't report it in the press because Fudge wanted to keep it quiet. But Fudge went out to Azkaban the night Black escaped. The guard told Fudge that Black's been talking in his sleep for a while now. Always the same words. He's at Hogwarts. He's at Hogwarts. Black is deranged, Molly, and he wants Harry dead. If you ask me, he thinks murdering Harry will bring you-know-who back to power. Black lost everything that night Harry stopped you-know-who, and he's had 12 years alone in Azkaban to brood on that.
There was a silence. Harry leaned still closer to the door, desperate to hear more.
Well, Arthur, you must do what you think is right, but you're forgetting Albus Dumbledore. I don't think anything could hurt Harry at Hogwarts while Dumbledore's headmaster. I suppose he knows about all this.
Of course he knows. We had to ask him if he minds the Azkaban guards stationing themselves around the entrances to the school yards. He wasn't happy about it, but he agreed.
Not happy? Why shouldn't he be happy if they're there to catch Black?
Dumbledore isn't fond of the Azkaban guards, said Mr. Weasley heavily. Nor am I, if it comes to that. But when you're dealing with a wizard like Black, you sometimes have to join forces with those you'd rather avoid.
If they save Harry,
then I will never say another word against them, said Mr. Weasley wearily. It's late, Molly. We better go up.
Harry heard chairs move. As quietly as he could, he hurried down the passage to the bar and out of sight. The parlor door opened, and a few seconds later, footsteps told him that Mr. and Mrs. Weasley were climbing the stairs. The bottle of rat tonic. Okay, so this dude is deranged. He wants Harry dead. He thinks murdering Harry will bring you-know-who back to power. Black lost everything the night Harry stopped. Okay, we don't know the details, but he's on Voldemort's side. Okay. The bottle of rat tonic was lying under the table they had sat at earlier. Harry waited until he heard Mr. and Mrs. Weasley's bedroom door close, then headed back upstairs with the bottle. Fred and George were crouching in the shadows on the landing, heaving with laughter as they listened to Percy dismantling his and Ron's room in the search for his bag.
We've got it, Fred whispered to Harry. We've been improving it.
The badge now read, Big Head Boy. Harry, forced to laugh, went to give Grot the rat tonic, then shut himself in his room and lay on his bed. So Sirius Black was after him. That explained everything. Fudge had been lenient with him because he was so relieved to find him alive. He'd made Harry promise to stay in Diagon Alley, where there were plenty of wizards to keep an eye on him, and he was sending 2 ministry cars to take them all to the station tomorrow so that Weasley could look after Harry until he was on the train. Harry lay listening to the muffled shouting next door and wondered why he didn't feel more scared. Sirius Black had murdered 13 people with one curse. Mr. and Mrs. Weasley obviously thought Harry would be panic-stricken if he knew the truth. But Harry happened to agree wholeheartedly with Mrs. Weasley that the safest place on Earth was wherever Albus Dumbledore happened to be. Didn't people always say that Dumbledore was the only person Lord Voldemort had never been afraid of? Surely Black, as Voldemort's right-hand man, would be just as frightened of him. And then there were these Azkaban guards everyone kept talking about. They seemed to scare most people senseless. And if they were stationed all around the school, Black's chances of getting inside seemed very remote. No, all in all, the thing that bothered Harry most was the fact that his chances of visiting Hogsmeade now looked like zero. Nobody would want Harry to leave the safety of the castle until Black was caught. In fact, Harry suspected his every move would be carefully watched until the danger had passed. He scowled at the dark ceiling. Did they think he couldn't look after himself? He'd escaped Lord Voldemort 3 times. He wasn't completely useless. Unbidden, the image of the beast in the shadows of Magnolia Crescent crossed his mind. What to do when you know the worst is coming? I'm not going to be murdered, Harry said out loud. That's the spirit, yeah, said his mirror sleepily. End of chapter. Okay, so there's somebody trying to kill Harry right off the top. Crazy. Oh man, a lot of stuff going on. And he's becoming more and more teenagerish. He's like, I can do this all on my own. You don't have to tell me. Just don't. He's becoming such a teenager. Okay, I'm gonna, I went 22 minutes longer. Let's do a little interaction session, and then we'll leave. While you're writing out questions, tune in tomorrow for the guest reader, Robbie K. He's going to be reading the narration. I'll be doing the voices. It'll be a fun experiment. We're gonna be just fooling around, trying something there. Follow Cave Cannon Productions. That's the company I'm a part of. Follow Mark at yoc.creations. Follow Noble.Byron for him reading Game of Thrones. And follow my brother, Mike Voth 1984, for some painting. Yeah. When isn't someone trying to kill Harry? Yeah. And they say Hogwarts, safest place on Earth. And yet, he's like almost died so many times. But, you know, Albus was watching over him. My damn dad wanted to fort time, and I missed... I thought he just wanted to play Fortnite. It's like, you sound like you got a pretty rad dad if he wants to play Fortnite with you. Are you watching the movie after you read each book? No. I'm gonna watch the movies later on. I haven't. The movies I've seen again 3. The first 2 when I was a teenager, and the second last one when it came out. I don't remember really anything except for some snake slithering through a village and me going, "What the hell is going on here?" I didn't know. Okay, actually a question for you before we end. Without ruining anything in the future, do you think Harry Potter, the writing, J.K. Rowling, do you think is it perfect? Or are there aspects of it that you think have flaws? Because I know so many people are crazy for Harry Potter. How quick do you post to YouTube? I try to do it as quickly as possible. Sometimes I mess up and forget, so I'm going to try and upload this as soon as possible tonight. MovieNet at John's post-Rona. Yeah, maybe. I'll see if we can do that. Did reading the books bring any memories back from the first 2 movies? Just the dining hall and then being on the train. Other than that, and like a flash of the 3-headed dog at one point. Other than that, it's all new for me. Like, I don't remember anything from it. It's brilliant. Not perfect, totally flawed. It's very well connected. Definitely, but some flaws. It's perfect. Absolutely love it. Perfect. Lots of details. She took a lot of other material from other places as well. Yeah, it's like Shakespeare. He wrote a lot, but he took a lot of writing from other writers and infused it and made it perfect by putting them together. Perfect. Nothing's perfect, but she's pretty dang brilliant at creating an extremely elaborate story. Yeah, okay, so generally not perfect, but there's a couple of flaws. I think it's masterful. No art is perfect. Some plot holes, but hardly anything of note. Okay, wow. Okay, very well connected, smart. Cool. Okay.
Until he says Shakespeare's wife.
All right, friends. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. Thanks again for tuning in. And thanks again for the nurses who have tuned in and healthcare workers who have tuned in for all your work, for everything you're doing for us sitting at home. And I will see you tomorrow. Tune in for a guest reader session with Robbie K. All right, see you later on Conk's Corner.